Welcome to Gridiron SN podcast. I'm Anthony DeSola.
I'm Patrick Vogel.
This is our first episode, the Trey Lance saga.
So we're talking about Trey Lance first, right?
Yeah, Trey Lance, the Trey Lance saga.
So obviously he got traded.
He got traded to the Cowboys for a fourth-round pick.
Yeah. So I mean,
he went for 3 first-rounders. The 49ers traded up
for 3 first-rounders and 3 first-rounders. So 2021 first, 2022 first, 2023 first, and a third in 2022.
A massive haul to trade up to get Trey Lance. To only move up, what was it, 2 spots?
Yeah,
to move up from 4. No, from what was it, 5 to 2?
Something like
5 to 3.
Yeah, and then obviously it really backfired for him because really it backfired for both him and San Francisco because he started only 4 games and his record in those 4 games was a .500 record, 2-2.
Yeah, he played 4 games. Didn't look too great, and not looking too great. Let's talk about the 10 players I drafted right after him.
Sure.
Kyle Pitts, Pro Bowl. Jamar Chase, Pro Bowl. Jalen Waddle. Does he have a Pro Bowl? A very good wide receiver.
Yeah, he's NFL leading wide receiver. These 3 guys have already made a name for themselves.
Penny Sewell, who's one of the best
Penny
offensive
Sewell,
linemen.
yep. Lions, yep.
J.C. Horn.
Injury, but had the injury last year. But
Pat Surtain, one of the best cornerbacks in the league.
Yeah, they'll both be extremely good in their respective secondaries.
Devontae Smith, a nice young wide receiver.
Yep, Alabama boy.
Justin Fields, who they could have picked if they wanted to.
Yeah, and honestly, I'd love to see Justin Fields in that system. What would he have looked like in terms of...
Because he wouldn't have to carry the team on his back, and he would have had a much better team around him than in Chicago.
And I feel honestly, I'd be more confident starting him. Obviously, you had Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco at the time, but I would be a lot more confident in, starting Justin Fields over Trey Lance.
Because Trey Lance just didn't have that experience. I saw something, I think I've seen it a lot around that. Geno Smith threw more passes last season than Trey Lance has in his whole career.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
college, and pro.
Yep. I mean, I think he just isn't. It was kind of a bad situation for both people, just for both sides, just because he wasn't lined up to have that opportunity, and obviously I think they thought he was going to be worth that pick. But anytime that you trade 3 first-round picks,
I mean, he was like a boomer bust prospect.
Yeah,
he was raw. He was very raw. I feel like coming out of college, and people saw the talent and they thought they could craft him into something, and then it just did not work out for them.
Well, and I think people saw, there were more experienced quarterbacks and bigger names. Obviously, you had Justin Fields and Mac Jones. They just wanted the project quarterback, see what he could do, and I think
because they had Jimmy G to start, so they wanted him to sit for a couple years, maybe watch, but it just did not pan out.
Yeah, and I just think that Kyle Shanahan was he thought it was his guy.
And with the emergence of Brock Purdy, he got buried even further.
Well, Brock Purdy, big Iowa State, so he. Obviously, you're not going to expect much out of him being Mr. Irrelevant or even he went to Iowa State. So, he's got something to prove, and I think he proved it to people. He is a dominant force in the game of football.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about what the 49ers gave up for Trey Lance. It's the 3 first-rounders. That's a lot to only move up 2 spots.
So 2021 first, 2022 first, and 2023 first, and a third in 2022.
And what did the Dolphins turn that into? It was Jalen
Waddle.
I know they traded one of those picks for Bradley Chubb.
Yep.
And what was the other pick?
There was another guy that hasn't really made a name for himself in the NFL.
But still, they made a lot out of those first-round picks.
Yeah, I mean, they got, I would say a generational talent at wide receiver.
Yes.
For sure.
The fastest wide receivers in the league are in Miami.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, and all they do is add speed. So they're obviously one of the fastest offenses in the league. And I think it worked out for Miami. I would say so.
They definitely won that trade.
I mean, that was definitely a landslide trade, and it was probably one of the biggest landslide trades in NFL history, I would say.
And I was thinking of comparing like very similar trades that in recent memory that for teams that gave up 3 first-round picks. Let's talk about the RG3. Washington gave up 3 first-round picks for RG3.
Well,
but
obviously, like
it looked like it was a great trade in his first year, and then
2012, his rookie year. I mean, he looked like
phenomenal.
he was a phenomenal. He looked like the next face of the NFL. I mean, it was.
And then after he like tore his ACL, right? And
Yeah,
they tried
tore
to get
his
him
ACL.
back. They tried to get him back out there as quick as possible. He should have just sat out. If he would have just sat out and let him recover it.
Like that, he obviously he had an ankle issue, a knee issue. Like it was just bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think he could have been Washington's quarterback of like the next decade. I mean, he like if he didn't get hurt and it didn't change him, he'd still be the quarterback there. I would.
Yes, and
assume.
but since he got hurt, like it just ruined his whole career and ruined Washington's future.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously,
And the lack of first-round picks put Washington in a bad spot, but they're lucky they did have draft Kirk Cousins late that year too to kind of coast them along.
Yeah, and obviously, like RG3 was, bounced around. I mean, Cleveland, but like obviously he found a fit as a backup QB in Baltimore
For a couple
and
years.
He, obviously like he liked it, so it wasn't too bad of a turnout actually.
Yeah, and now he's he's a broadcaster or something now.
Yeah, I mean broadcaster. He's a very colorful broadcaster at that.
He's entertaining to watch. I will say that.
He says some great stuff,
Especially during Michigan games.
Yeah. Maybe that comment was a little uncalled for, but
I will say
it made it more entertaining, and that's a type of entertainment that it's the next step. Like football's entertaining enough, but this just took
When
it
you're
over
very
the top.
colorful on the mic, it just
makes it
more
even
fun.
better.
Just makes your day.
I mean, just like Gus Johnson. Gus Johnson obviously makes it colorful, so RG3 make it better.
And then he just blurts out random words.
Yeah.
And then the other trade I was thinking about too, that's very similar, was the Deshaun Watson trade in 2017.
Ooh, yeah.
The Texans moving up to get him, which is a trade I'm very close for. I loved it at first, but then that trade did set the Texans back a while because they were lacking a lot of talent around him.
Well, I think too that you went into that knowing he was going to be the starter.
Yeah.
It was pretty obvious he was going to be the starter. And I don't think Trey Lance, I think their plan was to have him sit back behind Jimmy G and develop for at least a year.
Yeah, he would be developing for a while, but
obviously Jimmy G wasn't their mainstay long-term solution, and Trey Lance was supposed to be that, but it just doesn't work out sometimes.
You roll the dice, sometimes it works, sometimes it blows up in your face.
That's the NFL, and that's the world of professional sports.
So, you ready to talk about our preseason award predictions?
Actually, I want to get this in regards to Trey Lance. He, in his career, has had 56 completions on 102 attempts. That's a 54.9% completion percentage.
Not good.
He has 797 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Can Dallas turn him around?
They may take a chance with him if Dak still struggles with his interceptions.
Yeah, I think that you're not going to see Trey Lance all that much. I'm kind of looking forward to next preseason when he gets out there and takes the reps.
But speaking of Dak, he had struggled including last year and in training camp.
Well, that injury, that really gruesome injury that he suffered, I don't know. Those are the injuries that change your career.
Oh, that change how you play and how you view the game.
If I remember correctly, his ankle was like cockeyed and sideways, so it wasn't It's not the ideal situation for your franchise quarterback to be on the ground in that type of pain with that type of injury. So, we'll see what happens with Trey Lance in
We may
Dallas.
see him this year. May
Yeah.
not.
It's only a bonus to see him this year.
Yeah.
Kind of cool. So
now are you ready to talk about these awards?
absolutely.
So let's start off with Coach of the Year. Who's your prediction for Coach of the Year? I know I have D'Amico Ryans, but I want to hear who and why.
I think D'Amico Ryan's like a dark horse candidate kind of thing. I think he is a guy who could potentially be. Obviously, he could be the Coach of the Year, bringing all those Alabama boys, but it just depends on how that defense looks.
I think their defense will be great this year. I'm predicting them to be a top 10 defense this year. It's a matter of can their offense help out their defense by not going 3 and out, having long drives, like sustaining drives, getting first downs.
I mean, I feel like C.J.
'Cause-
Stroud is that quarterback that could fit in that system and be okay. It's just, do you have the offensive line, if you're the Texans, to hold up and protect him?
When their offensive line is healthy, they have the best one in the AFC South at least. You got one of the best left tackles in the league in Laramie Tunsil. You got young offensive line, so and the rest of the way with Kenyon Green's now out for the year, but he didn't look too good in preseason. You got Juice Scruggs, who looked solid. You got Titus Howard, who's dealing with a hand injury, but once he comes back, he'll be a solid addition. And then you got Shaq Mason at guard.
The veteran.
Yeah, who will be very reliable.
Well,
But if they give C.J. Stroud time, I feel like he will succeed.
yeah, I
He's
mean,
already-
he's got mainly a veteron line there, so
And he's already been building a chemistry with Tank Dell and Nico Collins.
so it really is only looking like a positive.
Yeah, so I believe with D'Amico Ryans in the defense, he will produce a great defense. It's a matter of can their offense score and move the ball.
And really keep up with other teams.
Yes. And also we have to see what that run defense looks like. If they can stop the run, it will succeed. But because their pass defense was great last year, I think it will still be great again this year. It's a matter of can they stop the run.
How many touchdowns did the Texans score in the preseason?
Good call.
C.J. Stroud's first passing touchdown, if I recall, wasn't until the 3rd game.
Yes, but he did not play a whole lot either in the preseason.
And that's just, I would think that's just D'Amico Ryans protecting his quarterback.
Yes.
So,
Because he already named him the starter.
yeah, and that was expected anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So who's your Coach of the Year prediction? Oh wait, I forgot to say. So this is what I was thinking about, why he's Coach of the Year, because it depends if he could turn. I believe he will turn the Texans around, and they start turning a corner and win probably about 7 or 8 games, which is a massive improvement, and they'll be in a lot of close games, based solely on their defense. And plus, they have a very easy schedule this year, so that's why.
I kind of want to say Sean McDermott, but it comes down to I think there's a couple other coaches that probably will get looked at more than Sean McDermott, and I feel like if Jacksonville has a good year, Doug Peterson is definitely a contender consideration. Let's see who else could be. I mean, I could see. You think Tomlin in Pittsburgh? You think Mike Tomlin with if Kenny Pickett shows up and shows out, I could see.
He was looking better towards the end of last season, Kenny Pickett. He was
Yeah,
looking a
and
lot better.
And even in the preseason, he looked on point.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, being a Bills fan, I know that firsthand because that game was just rough, absolutely rough. And Kenny Pickett didn't miss a beat, and it was just, it wasn't good. So, but yeah, I still think that Sean McDermott does have a chance, though. I feel like he could potentially get this team to a Super Bowl. But obviously you got to beat the Chiefs. You got to beat the Bengals, which I don't. The mountain right now is the Chiefs to me. Like, it's always been, you have to beat the Chiefs. You got to get over the Chiefs to get into the, whether it's the AFC Championship.
He got embarrassed by the Bengals in the playoffs.
I'm going to say that
was a fluke game.
After everything that happened between the 3 snowstorms, the Damar Hamlin incident, just the crazy year coming off of the just different, like, crazy, even horrific events that happened in Buffalo. Like, by the time you got to that game, they were burned out. And
so they were just tired, and they just they just had no energy left in them.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, they're emotionally drained at that point.
And they just need an off season just to refresh, recoup, and just get ready to go for the next season.
Yeah, and I feel like with the additions that they made this offseason, I feel like we didn't see a regression in the Bills. Like, you saw only pretty much improvement. Obviously, you brought in new talent, so. All
right, now we're going to talk about our offensive rookie of the year. My prediction, Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, that's probably
the safe bet.
That's probably the safe bet.
It would either be that or one of the rookie QBs. But
yeah,
I think Bijan, because he's like so versatile, and the way the Falcons are going to plan to use him, he will put up a lot of yards.
I mean, I'm not saying this because of my fandom for Alabama, but I still think that Will Anderson could be a rookie of the year. But then I also think on offense, I feel like you could see Bryce Young take a step and be the offensive.
I can see that happening because I have Will Anderson as my defensive player of the year. I mean, defensive rookie of the year as well.
Yeah, and I feel like
because of the way D'Amico plans on using him, he's going to put him in a Micah Parsons kind of role.
Yeah, I just think we got to see some improvement out of that Carolina offensive line if they're going to keep Bryce off the ground, off the turf, healthy. It's just
because he cannot just be hit. He
got battered in those preseason games. Absolutely, just
if they can protect
crushed.
Bryce, he will succeed. But if they can't protect him well, he's gonna end up. I feel like he's gonna end up hurt or just battered or just not gonna turn out the way that he could have.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be on him either because obviously you've seen small quarterbacks in the league thrive. Obviously, Doug Flutie. And I feel like that would be the comparison. You just got a small quarterback behind a huge line that's, I would say, a little bit just vulnerable at this point. Like, I don't think that
he's gonna have to make quick decisions.
Yeah, and he's made quick, decisive decisions at Alabama, and he's led drives, but he's also had first-round talent as his offensive line. And I'm not saying Carolina doesn't. I'm just saying the line that he had at Alabama it's going to take a adjustment period from going from that Alabama offensive line to the Carolina offensive line.
Is Carolina's offensive line really that bad?
I don't think
it's great.
It's not great, and I think it's a liability. I think they could get Bryce hurt.
All right. Looks like you're going to have to go with a lot of 2 tight end sets out there. Give them some extra protection.
Yeah. I could see them doing a lot of, 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. So.
Throw a fullback back there. Now let's talk about comeback player of the year. Who are our predictions? I'm honestly torn between John Mechie and DeMar.
That's the hardest part because you have a guy coming off of leukemia. And I have being a fan of Alabama football, like John Mechie, I have a feeling about him that
Yeah, I feel like John Mechie's gonna break out this year and be a great slot guy.
Yeah, and
for the Texans, like he will be relied upon by CJ to like come through.
Yeah, and
but also I think like the whole nation like is.
Everyone's
on
DeMar.
Everyone wants DeMar. Like
which
they were posting about like, oh, DeMar made the 53-man roster. I'm like, everyone knew that he was gonna make the roster. I felt like, how did you not?
Yeah,
he was supposed to make the roster.
I think it was more of the fact that, we didn't know if he was ever going to play football again, and then he got cleared, and it just 6 months ago he was on the just over 6 months ago he was on the field, just not responding.
6 months ago, really? I feel like it's been longer, like more like 7.
Like what? January?
Yeah, it was the first week of January.
Yeah, it was like the first couple. January 2nd.
Something like that.
January 1st. But either way, like, that is an unbelievable thing to come back from.
That is true.
You were, like...
But it's been happening more and more often, though, too, with players.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, like, even in other sports, there's athletes just having these, like, cardiac issues. And it's like, DeMar has also helped bring like awareness to CPR in this, but he's also brought a spotlight to, in a magnifying glass to all these issues that all these people are actually collapsing and it's a big issue.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly would be happy with either one. I think that...
But I want Mechie to win it, but I think DeMar's going to win it just solely because he has
DeMar
everyone behind him.
Yeah. It's to the point where he is just loved by the whole NFL community, and I feel like everybody has their like heart goes out to him, and they feel like he should be like recognized for it.
This is the year I want there to be 2 comeback player of the years. One offensive and one defensive comeback player of the year. That should be
comeback player of the year award.
You know how they have offensive and defensive rookie of the year? They need to have offensive and defensive comeback player of the year.
Yeah.
Just in this case, because there's like 2 players come back from such traumatic things to come back and play, overcome those obstacles. They're overcoming such difficult obstacles to come back and play just less than a year later,
which nobody like refutes and just
it's just congrats for even making it back here.
Yeah, like it's.
And if you're playing and if you succeed, well, that's even better. It's like
the fact that they've overcame these obstacles is like amazing enough. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they're on the field now, that's extraordinary.
Now let's talk about our defensive player of the year.
So I think we both had Will Anderson.
That was rookie of the year.
Defensive player of the year, I think Will Anderson could still do it. But
he may finish like top 5, if that. But like, I honestly think it's gonna be T.J. Watt or Nick Bosa.
So the 2 main guys that everybody thinks, and
Will Anderson is a dark horse for it though.
Have you seen the Jalen Carter highlights of him just destroying these offensive lines? And literally the first play of his NFL career in the preseason, he just absolutely lit a guy up and pushed him over.
But was he a starter? Because it's preseason. It could be a second or third string center.
I don't think that matters. I really don't care whether it was or not. He will be a wrecking ball in this league.
He has been his whole career though.
Yeah, well, and I don't see any change. I really don't see any change.
So you're saying he's the next Aaron Donald?
I wouldn't go that far yet, but he is looking
elite,
exactly like he did in college, and exactly like we thought he might in the NFL.
All right, but who is your honest opinion to win Defensive Player of the Year?
T.J. Watt.
Yeah, T.J. Watt. Yeah, of course. Because in his last full season was that he played 15 games in.
Yep.
He had 22.5 sacks and 21 tackles for loss. So I'm thinking if he played a full 17-game season, he could have 24 or 25 sacks and maybe break the record.
Yeah,
If he was on that pace,
absolutely agree.
if he was on his 2021 pace,
I would absolutely agree.
if he was back to that form.
The record is still 22.5 by Michael Strahan, right?
I believe so.
That's never been broken. So it's been tied. TJ tied it.
Yeah.
But it should be the year he breaks it.
This should be the year he breaks it because he has that extra game now. And if he can stay healthy.
If he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
And, injuries kind of running the family with JJ, so just depends.
JJ was great, and then he was phenomenal for that stretch, and then he had the injury problems, and then he came back, had a full season, had like 18 sacks or something like that, and then he got hurt again, and then went to Arizona to let his career finish out, and then retired. Then he came back for Houston for a day, and retired as a Texan.
It's super important to know he retired a Texan. Definitely should.
Because his heart is in Houston.
Well, that's true, and everything he did for Houston.
Yeah.
Hurricanes and stuff, hurricane relief stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, how the heck did we get talking about JJ when we're talking about TJ?
Because you're talking about his brother's injury problems. Injuries run in the family. You're telling me that.
Well, there's two things that run in the Watt family: injury and dominance.
Yes.
And its dominance is going to show through.
Yes, they will always be dominant because they're the Watts. Now that we established that the Watts are dominant and TJ will maybe break the record this year if he stays healthy, let's talk about our offensive player of the year, Justin Jefferson. I've heard a lot of people saying that he's going to break Calvin Johnson's record. I don't think so, just because of the wide receiver core. He will get a lot of targets and a lot of yards. I think he comes within 50 yards of breaking it, but he won't break it.
Yeah, I don't think he touches it. In terms, I think he gets close, but I don't think he breaks it. But I will say my dark horse candidate for it, Brandon Ayuk.
That is interesting.
I think he could definitely have a major breakout year.
My other prediction for offensive player of the year could be Nick Chubb. He, in my opinion, is the best running back in the league.
I think he's proven that.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to deal with Kareem Hunt this year being limiting his carries. So he's going to get the bulk of the carries. He's going to get all the red zone touches and just score a lot of touchdowns. He'll get a lot of yards. He'll get at least 1,500 rushing yards this year.
I would definitely agree with you. But I think Jamal Williams gets more touchdowns because he is that 15-yard less.
He's the goal line guy.
Yeah, he's absolutely the goal line guy. So.
Like he was in Detroit.
Yep. Every game it seemed like he was in the end zone. Just that was his specialty.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about our MVP picks.
I'm going with my quarterback, Josh Allen.
I will go with Josh Allen too, even though he's not my quarterback, but he is my pick because I think the Bills finally break through the Chiefs, break through the Bengals, and make it to the Super Bowl. But that's where I'm going to leave it at.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point, and I think I've always, it's kind of instilled in me that you can't just say, oh, the Bills are going to, we're going to win the Super Bowl. Because everybody's tired of hearing that. Obviously, 0-4 in the 90s, 4 Super Bowl losses. I'm just saying they're getting there this year.
Yeah, you guys aren't the favorite this year anymore, right?
No, we're the underdog, and that's
I think teams perform better when they have the underdog mentality because they're people don't believe in us. Let's prove them wrong.
Well, and that's how that's how coaches talked about it. Brandon Beane talked about it before last year when they were the favorites. That's what the Bills were. They were the underdog, and I think ultimately trying to live up to that hype last year of, oh, we're the Super Bowl favorites, on top of everything that happened, was just emotionally and just physically draining.
I also believe when you're the favorites, you also feel you're entitled to certain games and to where you don't play as hard as you should be.
And I think that's true. I feel like we have seen that firsthand.
I definitely saw it with when I was watching the New York Rangers last year because I watch a lot of hockey and the Rangers are my team, and I saw they were not playing up to what they should have been, and then halfway through the season, they just changed their ways and they went winning because they realized we actually have to play hard because this isn't going to just be given to us. We have to play the way we should be playing.
Yeah.
Because nothing's given to us.
Well, and I think that's just it just in all sports, you build a super team and you're like, oh, like we're gonna get there, and it just doesn't work out because you don't have any chemistry. It's all about chemistry in these leagues. It's all about chemistry in the NFL.
Chemistry is superior to superstars. You can have all the superstars you want, and your team can still be trash. It's a matter of building chemistry with and knowing what each other's going to do and who's going to make the play when you need them to make it.
Yeah, egos hurt. If you have your own personal ego, you better set that aside and work as a team player if you really want to get where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to shift to some familiar faces and new places, starting with Aaron Rodgers and with the Jets.
Can I break down the trade?
Yes, you can, because you know the details. I don't remember the details.
The Jets got Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay's first, and Green Bay's fifth for a first in 2023, a 2023 second, a 2023 sixth, and a conditional 2024 second-round pick that becomes a first-round pick if Rodgers plays 65% of the plays this season.
Which is a given if he doesn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Because he's a starting quarterback.
Well.
But the thing is, I think that's a lot to give up from Aaron Rodgers because he went downhill quick from the difference between 21 to 22. He had his one of his worst years of his career last year.
I don't want to say he's washed because we haven't seen him.
Maybe he was just done with Green Bay.
But something changed in him, whether it was he was done with Green Bay, he wanted a change, or even that thumb injury he sustained in London against the Giants. After that thumb injury, he was not the same.
Maybe that thumb injury did cause him to throw his first time throwing double-digit interceptions since 2010.
I will say this. I have never played quarterback in any league at any point in my life, but I have thrown a football, and when you jam your thumb or have any finger injury, you have to change up your whole mechanic of even gripping a football. So it changes the whole dynamic of just you as a quarterback. You just are not the same.
Oh, you change your throwing motion once you jam your thumb?
It's
because I'm like, it hurts. I'm still chucking it.
It depends. Obviously, it depends on how bad. But his injury, it was more than that. Didn't he have ligament? He had ligament.
Oh,
damage.
ligament damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So he changed the way he gripped the ball to make it more comfortable, and it's just what you have to do. But
and that's probably why we saw
downside.
some throws which we wouldn't see him make or were just not on point a lot of the year.
Yeah, and I think that Giants game was a complete example of that. I mean, it was not good.
His worst game I saw was against Detroit, where I think he threw a couple red zone interceptions.
Yeah, I remember that game, and I remember how bad he looked against the Bills, and he is now 0-7 all time in Buffalo and against the Bills.
That is something that is surprising and interesting to me, that he's never won against the Bills in Buffalo.
He's never won against the Bills, period. But he's also never won against the Bills in Buffalo, which is definitely it's good. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat that.
I think maybe he may have a good year, maybe not. I feel like the Jets are a little overhyped this year. They have a great defense, but can Aaron Rodgers and his receiving core from the New York Jet Packers?
I was gonna say we're obviously we did a little foreshadowing there, but yeah, it's he obviously Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, so he brought in his he brought in his trusted receivers, even though last year
he complained about having them.
He wanted out of Green Bay because he didn't have competent receivers, and then he brought that group back in.
Alan Lazard was his best receiver last year, so he won his trusted guy.
Well, and Randall Cobb has always been that. Randall Cobb has always been his trusted guy. He always looked for Randall.
That is true.
It's worked out for them so far. Hall of Fame career.
Let's talk about another new addition to a new team. DJ Moore. The trade that the massive haul the Panthers had to give up to get Bryce Young at number 1, which landed DJ Moore in Chicago.
This is another trade that I kind of broke down. Obviously, the Bears traded the first overall pick to the Panthers. And
which the Bears got by the Texans failing how to
Yes. Anyway, the Bears received the 9th overall pick in 2023, a first in 2024, a second in 2025, and DJ Moore, who, by the way, is going into his second year of a 3-year deal worth $61.88 million, and that was the contract he signed in Carolina.
So the Bears got 2 years of DJ Moore, and he could still sign an extension if he wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the DJ Moore to the Bears helps Justin Fields out so much because he has a very
the way that it sounds, they have connected really good. They're like really good friends, and
the screen passes have worked out great for them so far.
Like that game against, I'm just going off of what I saw because the Bills played them in the preseason, but there was one play where DJ Moore caught the ball, just took off down the sidelines for like 50-something yards, and you're going to see a lot of that this year.
Yes.
It's going to help out
it's
going to help out the Bears a whole lot, and it's going to help out Justin Fields a whole lot.
Yeah, DJ Moore will have a career year this year. He definitely will.
Book it.
1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns.
Is that what you think?
He's going to be Justin Fields' number 1.
Well, you always got to remember Chase Claypool.
Chase Claypool, number 3. Do you have a first-round pick for Chase Claypool?
Darnell Mooney.
Darnell Mooney is going to be superior to Chase Claypool.
I've always liked Darnell Mooney. Always enjoyed watching Darnell Mooney. So, I think the top 2 Bears receivers will be DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney.
Yes. Can't forget about their tight end, Cole Kmet.
Yeah. They better do something with him this year.
He was solid the last couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, it's just it wasn't the experience that he had at Notre Dame. It wasn't what he was used to. So,
all right. Now let's talk about Jesse Bates, who vastly improves the Falcons' secondary.
Signed a 4-year, $64.02 million contract. Yeah, being one of the top safeties in the league. Obviously, not having Von Bell there beside him, which, by the way, a top safety duo.
Yes.
But I still think he's just as dominant. I think he helps that Atlanta Falcons team out.
He starts helping turn that defense around.
Yeah. I think he's...
Wait, because A.J. Terrell's still a very solid cornerback in
that's
Atlanta.
That is kind of what, like, that... I'll put it this way. That is like Trey White, Jordan Poyer, and Micah Hyde. Like, between Jesse Bates and Terrell, like you're going to see dramatic improvement.
Yes.
AJ Terrell is going to be a better corner because of Jesse Bates.
Because he has help.
Yes.
He has
behind him. He's got safety help behind him.
He has a reliable safety behind him.
So, yeah, it's gonna improve that defense all around.
Now Orlando Brown, offensive line help in Cincinnati.
Yeah, he also got a 4-year, $64 million contract.
Can't forget about the $31 million signing bonus.
Yeah, and that comes with being a left tackle. You got to protect your quarterback's blind side. That is the second most important on the offense. And he is just like his father, extremely good, if not better. But he spent time with Lamar. He's also spent time with Patrick Mahomes. Now he's spending time with Joe Burrow.
So 3 of the 4 best QBs in the AFC. He has
This
spent time.
guy.
No, I mean 3 of the 5 best. Sorry, Joe.
This guy is protecting the biggest names in the NFL, and he's extremely good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to stay healthy.
Who?
Joe Burrow has to stay healthy in order for that offense to function. Yes, you could put a random QB behind him.
Well, you can put a random QB in that offense. And I think that QB would be fine based solely on the weapons they have.
Well, yeah.
But the offensive line, outside of Orlando Brown, is a little iffy.
Joe Burrow is what makes that offense tick.
Yes.
That is I'm not going to say an elite quarterback yet. He's still got to earn that. But he is a top quarterback in the league
Joe Burrow is a top 5 QB in the AFC. Maybe even top 3. I will say, I'll take it back. Top 3 QB in the AFC.
Yes. I would say that.
Let's talk about some things we've noticed. We have noticed about the Giants poaching off the Bills.
They, for the last 2 years, have just poached guys. And whether it's just the Bills kind of guys that didn't make the roster or were veterans that just got cut or just guys that were released, the Giants are right there to pick them back up. And
they turned Isaiah Hodgins into a wide receiver 1 for the Giants.
Isaiah Hodgins was going to be I'm going to say a great wide receiver for the Bills. And
he was just sitting on the practice squad, right? He was just sitting on the Bills practice squad.
Yeah, which wasn't the plan. He got hurt, and he was hurt for a good 2 seasons. He was going to be a mainstay in that offense. He was going to be, and he is a legit receiver.
Yeah, in 8 games with the Giants last year, he had 33 receptions for 351 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's solid stats for a guy that was sitting on the practice squad.
Well, and we got to see him firsthand going to the Giants-Texans game. He
looked good.
He every time you looked up, it seemed like he was getting the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Which is he's got great chemistry with Daniel Jones.
Mm-hmm.
So
who else did that have the Giants stolen? They've stolen Matt Breida, Tommy Sweeney, Boogie Basham, which they just traded for, Cole Beasley, who they signed as a free agent. They took Tywan Jones, Jamie Gillian, and Tyree Jackson.
Yeah. What I want to say, it's a little bit unrelated to that, but Tommy Sweeney had a medical event happen on the field, early this week or late last week, and I'm just a little bit. I felt for him, just being a Bills fan. You don't want to see a former Bill or anybody go down, and just hopefully he makes a speedy recovery and makes an impact on the season.
Gotcha. And we'll finish our very first episode with T.J. Hawkinson's contract extension. He deserves it.
To be the highest paid tight end in the league and to be valued in Minnesota, there's got to be nothing. There can't be any better feeling. And he said in a press conference after he signed the contract, he loves the fans. He loves playing for the Vikings. And usually when you have players that love playing for your organization,
you
they
do
are going
your
to
best
ball.
to try to keep them.
Yeah.
You do anything to try to keep players that love playing for your team.
And he's going to ball out for them. He's going to be a big piece of that offense.
Yeah, he'll be the second best tight end in the league, behind obviously Travis Kelce.
I think he puts up great numbers this year.
Yeah.
I do. I think so.
He has always been a solid tight end, but he puts up great numbers this year.
Yeah,
He's always been reliable, and he's always been very solid. But this year, I think he has his best season.
and he's going to he was
Because
he was
Minnesota
solid in
had-
Detroit, but he is going to put his career onto a next level.
And
If he
Minnesota
continues,
will be relying on the pass game more this year.
yeah, if he continues on the trajectory he is, while being in Minnesota, he will be a top 5 tight end in the league, no question.
He already is a top 5 tight end in the league.
But I'm saying in terms of like mainstay stability, top 5.
Oh, so he'll be a top 5 for a while.
Yeah, because you really couldn't say that when he was in Detroit.
That's it from the Gridiron SN podcast. I'm Anthony De Silva.
I'm Patrick Vogel.
See ya.